All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is Tyler King with the Denver Gazette, back recapping another Colorado Buffaloes football game, another loss for Coach Prime and the Buffs, this time out in Morgantown, West Virginia, their longest road trip of the year, and a game that before the season seemed like their easiest Big 12 game of the year, but obviously this season has gone very, very poorly in many ways for Deion Sanders and the Buffs in his third season in Boulder, as they now fall to 3-7 and are no longer eligible and are officially eliminated from bowl contention, which I think going into the year was probably the bare minimum in terms of this being a successful season, was making a bowl game for the second straight year, which hasn't been done with the Buffs since 2000 in 20 years, since 2004, 2005 was the last time this program has made bowl games in back-to-back seasons, and they're going to fall short of that this year after the 29-22 defeat at West Virginia, like I mentioned. But this one was obviously a little bit different. It wasn't the two straight blowouts like the two straight blowouts where they gave up 50 plus points in both those games against Utah and Arizona respectively, lost those games by a combined score of 105-24. They were at least competitive, albeit with one of the other teams at the bottom of the Big 12, and at this point the only team you can definitively say is worse than Colorado in the Big 12 is Oklahoma State, which is obviously having a disaster season, fired Mike Gundy back in September. So Colorado is probably 15th out of 16 teams in the Big 12. And I wasn't going into the year. I know they internally had expectations to compete for the Big 12, which we'll talk about why that was. And I think a lot of people nationally felt like after last year with going 9-3 with Shedeur and Travis, making the Alamo Bowl, being tied atop the standings of the Big 12 at the end of the regular season. Obviously, tiebreakers prevented them from playing for a Big 12 title, but I think people thought they would be in a similar spot this year, despite losing a lot of guys at the top of the roster. They felt like this was a deeper team. It was a team that was going to be more balanced, be able to run the ball, and it's just really everything's just kind of fallen flat on its face at this point of the season now, with 2 games left to go, and they've got obviously a bye week this week before Arizona State comes to town for the home finale, senior day, and there's going to be a lot of seniors that are playing their last games at Folsom Field against Arizona State in a little less than 2 weeks, and then after that they play at Kansas State to close the regular season. Like I said, before the season, I had this team I think 7th, 8th, that range, middle of the pack in the Big 12. I had them 7-5. Which ironically is what I had them at before last season, and they exceeded my expectations. After I nailed the prediction in Coach Prime's first year, I had them at 4-8, which they went. I did not see this coming, and I don't know if they're going to win a game the rest of the year. We'll see. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk a ton about Julian Lewis today and his first career start, which I thought was really encouraging. 299 yards, 22 of 35, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Took some bad sacks, but didn't technically turn the ball over. I think they had 1 turnover on downs, but that was a 4th down run that got stuffed in the first half. And there's plenty of encouraging signs from Julian Lewis. I mean, I know a lot of Buff fans are going to be like, why didn't he play sooner? Given the way Caden Salter has been playing for months now. But I kind of understand it. They paid Caden Salter a decent amount of money. They thought he was going to be the guy that bridged the gap between Shedeur and JuJu, because, as we talked about on the channel, throughout the season, JuJu was only 18 years old. He was 17 when this season started, when he played his first snap of college football in that Delaware game in week 2. He was only 17 years old. He's supposed to be a senior in high school this year. He came to CU, a year and a half early in January, and competed for the job throughout the offseason. But I think the coaching staff just wanted to go with the veteran in Caden Salter, and felt like maybe he would help with the offensive game plan to run the ball, which I thought made sense, and especially with the offensive line, which is the one aspect of the team I think has improved from last year to this year. Everywhere else has taken a pretty massive step back. So I kind of understood that. But now at this point, Julian Lewis, if he plays these last 2 games, he's going to burn his red shirt. But I don't think he cares. He clearly doesn't really care about that at this point. I don't think the coaching staff does either, because, I mean, in today's day and age of college football, are you really expecting Julian Lewis to be here for 4 more years after this? he's certainly a guy that, with the recruiting pedigree and all that kind of stuff, is a guy that has aspirations to play in the NFL and has what people think are the tools to play in the NFL. He's obviously still got a ton of developing to do, not just mentally. He's a pretty mature kid for his age, but physically, all that kind of stuff. He's only 18 years old. Like I said, like, you're not expecting him to go to the NFL for a couple of years, but even with that, I don't think the red shirt is ultimately that important. I think it's about trying to infuse confidence, not just in the players on the roster, but boosters, people that have been supporting this program, because in this day and age of college football, money is king more than ever, because you got to pay to keep guys like Julian Lewis here. You got to pay to keep guys like Omarion Miller here. You got to pay guys like Jordan Seaton to pay him to keep him here. All that kind of stuff. Like, we can talk all we want about how these young men want to come play for Coach Prime, and that's certainly been the case at times throughout his tenure, but it's not been enough, because money talks, and that's why I think the Buffs just didn't get some of the guys maybe they expected to out of the portal this past year, and the guys they did get, they just didn't really hit on. I mean, I've mentioned offensive line. I feel like they improved there. I think Xavier Hill has been a quality player. Zai Chrysler as well, Zarian McGill. All those guys are veterans, and I think they've been positive contributors. But everywhere else, they really haven't hit on any of the transfer guys. Obviously, Caden Salter's the most notable guy. Him just not being the guy you expected is the reason they're 3-7 and probably not 5-4 at this point of the season, or 5-5, I should say, at this point of the season, because there's a couple games in there that you felt like they could have won, whether it's Georgia Tech week 1 or TCU, BYU. All three of those games we've talked about multiple times. They had double-digit leads in both those games, and now they didn't win any of them. So. This just kind of is what it is for the Buffs at this point of the season. You got to look toward next year. You got to try to use it as a springboard, if you will, because there isn't going to be a bowl game. That extra month of practices, coaches always say, is super helpful. And although that didn't seem to be much of the case for the Buffs last year because of how much roster turnover there was, but it's going to be an offseason to change, at least for Coach Prime. I mean, I wasn't sure. I was always kind of skeptical if he would be a guy that stuck around after Shador and Shiloh and Travis all graduated and moved on after 2 years. We always knew that was kind of the base window for him at CU, but him sticking out this year despite all the health issues and stuff, you got to give him credit for that. But now this season not going the way he clearly wants to, I was wondering if that would affect his willingness to want to stick around, because it's not going to be easy trying to turn this thing around after what has clearly been a disappointing season now. And it's disappointing both from a coaching perspective, because that hasn't been great. There was the report last week that Pat Shurmur is no longer calling offensive plays, although Coach Prime kind of ducked that question after the West Virginia game, saying it's always been a collaborative process, et cetera, not really willing to confirm that Brett Bartolone is called the tight ends coach is calling plays now, because Coach Prime just doesn't want to throw his coaches under the bus, which I understand. But when you're to a certain extent, but when you're not performing like this, I think there's a standard that needs to be met, and it's a standard that he openly has talked about wanting to deliver for not just this program, but for Rick George, who believed in him and gave him the opportunity to come to Colorado, and all that kind of stuff, and all the players that have decided to come play for him that are far away from home. Many of them, the majority of this roster is from the South or California or Texas, all that kind of stuff, and it just hasn't worked out, and it's hard not to be frustrated for Coach Prime, but he's clearly frustrated, like I said, but the changes will be coming. And one of the big reasons earlier I alluded to it, that they felt like they were going to be a team that was competing in the Big 12 this season, was because they have 38 guys in the last year of eligibility. That's almost half your roster. That is guys that are playing their last year and trying to win now. And that's why I felt like maybe it was best not to play a 17-year-old freshman to start the year. Although maybe in hindsight, if Julian's playing, maybe they are have an extra win or two and are competing, do have a chance to get to a bowl game. But all that is hindsight 2020. And now all you can do is kind of look forward to next year, because there are foundational pieces like JuJu Lewis. Like, if you're able to keep him here, which I don't really see a reason why he wouldn't at this point, as long as Coach Prime stays. That's the only thing, if Coach Prime decides to retire, that's the only thing that could throw this for a loop. But if JuJu stays, I think there's a good chance you got to keep Jordan Seaton here. Obviously he didn't play this past game against West Virginia. That was the first game he's ever missed since being at CU. He's clearly on a path to the NFL. first-round pick kind of guy at left tackle, and you got to keep him here for that his likely final year in college, that junior year next year. And you got plenty of pieces I think you can build around as well on offense, whether it's Omarion Miller, who had another big game against the Mountaineers, 131 yards, a touchdown. Joseph Williams had a touchdown and 64 yards. Both those guys could come back. Omarion would be a senior. Joseph would be a junior. So I think it would be great to get both those guys back. But then defensively, I mean, the only really guy back you're looking to keep. There's a couple guys in the defensive line, like Brandon Davis-Wayne, I thought played pretty well against West Virginia, had a sack, forced a fumble. But Tawfiq Byard is by far the guy you need to keep defensively. He's looked like a guy that a real guy, to put it plainly, at safety. And he's got 2 years of eligibility left after coming in as a transfer from South Florida. So and he's a guy we've talked to after a lot of these games, and just he's pretty frustrated. And clearly, he wants to win and be a leader on this team. So, if you're able to keep him around, those are a couple 5, 6, 7 solid building blocks. Which Coach Prime always says you need 8, 9, 10 dudes, combined between offense and defense to be a team that can compete. So they've got to find some guys in the transfer portal. They've got to supplement depth in the transfer portal too. Like I mentioned, with 40 guys leaving the program, and they only have a dozen or so. I don't even know if it's that many. Haven't really kept up with the high school recruiting as much this year, but I mean, that's just never been a staple under Coach Prime, and maybe it should be. Maybe that's the one flaw of this program is the lack of a commitment maybe to really going in on high school recruits. They have the guys, they've gotten big name guys every year, like we've talked about. They had Cormani McLean that first year, although he's obviously not with the program anymore. They got Jordan Seaton the following year. They got JuJu Lewis this past year. They get big name guys usually. They don't have one committed right now, really one of those top 50-ish kind of guys, the five-star kind of guys, but you need to get 10, 12, 15, even 20 guys to supplement your roster and keep developing. But I mean, even then, like the coaching staff has not done a great job of developing certain guys as well. So it's both a personnel on the coaching staff and a personnel on the roster issue. And all of that's going to need to be addressed in the offseason if Coach Prime wants to turn things around here in year 4 next year in 2026, because it's not going to be easy. The Big 12 schedule is going to be difficult. Once again, I feel like, at least, I mean, it's always going to be competitive. There's going to be a lot of one-score games, and they were able to win a lot of those last year, and they haven't won any of them this year except for the Iowa State game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this offseason, but these last 2 games are going to be really important in terms of trying to build momentum. Like I said, not just with the roster, but keeping the donor class kind of interested in wanting to reinvest back in the program, and trying to supplement this roster once again, because it's going to be another offseason of heavy portal class and all that kind of stuff, because what they put on the field this year, and Coach Prime, I think he openly admitted it in the interview with Champ Bailey with TNT before this past week game, was that they just didn't hit on the guys in the portal, and that's something I wrote about a couple weeks ago, actually, in the Denver Gazette, ironically, that this is what it looks like when you don't hit on a portal class, is this Buffs team. So interested to see how they kind of address that, what coaching staff changes are made, and how they just build around Julian Lewis, who looks like the future for the next at least 2 years after this at quarterback. Obviously, I mentioned you got key guys that you really need to focus on retaining, and Jordan Seaton and Omarion Miller, Joseph Williams, those guys, to build a solid foundation offensively. But it's going to be all about supplementing the roster around those guys, because there is real talent on this roster, and the coaching staff as well is going to have to be upgraded as well, because they just haven't gotten the most out of the talent they have said all year is there. So I think it's kind of a mix of both, that the players just aren't as good as they expected them to be, especially a lot of the transfers they brought in this past offseason, and the coaching staff just hasn't nearly been up to snuff this year. Obviously, I think the offense coordinator is going to be very different next year. Byron Leftwich is going to be a guy that comes up. We'll see who else. I don't know if maybe they've always talked about it as a positive, but the whole NFL experience thing, being kind of the end all be all with the coaching staff, maybe that is something that gets revisited this offseason. You're just trying to find proven winners at the college level as well. So it's going to be all interesting to see what happens, as I've said many times now, what happens in Boulder this offseason, because I know Coach Prime is not going to stand for another year like this next year, where they're there's 2 weeks to go in the left in the regular season, and they're already out of bowl contention. So it's not. I don't think you should be expecting for a program like Colorado to be 9-3 every regular season, but you should be at least trying to compete for a bowl game in the Big 12 with the resources I know they do have. It's just about hitting on your guys and coaching them up a little bit better, because this year just hasn't cut it. And this game against West Virginia, yeah, it's nice that Julian Lewis played well, and Omarion Miller looks like remains a really quality receiver, a number one even in the Big 12. Joseph Williams is solid. We've seen Jordan Seaton be a pretty stud left tackle. But when the majority of your roster is not playing up to its ability or what you expected it to be, you're going to be losing to West Virginia on the road late in the year, a team that ranked dead last, near the bottom of just about every statistic in the Big 12. Granted, they're coming off a big win against Houston and have some momentum, and the Buffs don't. But this is a game, like I said at the very big top of this video, that you thought you were easily going to win before the regular season. Now you're just looking for moral victories against a pretty bad West Virginia team in year one of Rich Rodriguez, which this year has gone how they expected it. So, and the complete opposite for Coach Prime and the Buffs. So appreciate everybody that stuck around, watch this video. Let me know in the comments how you guys are feeling after this West Virginia game, what you're hoping to see from JuJu and the rest of the roster in these final 2 weeks. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. All that stuff is super appreciated by me and helps me grow the channel, helps me get all these videos out there. Gonna have plenty of content to come at the end of this regular season here, and then over the off season as the Buffs kind of rework some things and make some changes, like I said. So once again, thanks everybody for watching and listening, and stay tuned for what's next.